from Lugansk to New York. Stop the war on children from Lugansk to New York. Stop the war on children from Lugansk to New York. Stop the war on children from Lugansk to New York. Stop the war on children from Lugansk to New York. Stop the war on children from Lugansk to New York. US NATO out of Ukraine. US NATO out of Ukraine. US NATO out of Ukraine.
US NATO
out of Ukraine. Good morning, everyone. My name is Greg Butterfield. I'm with the International Action Center, and I'm also the parent of 2 kids. The reason we're out here, today is December 10th, International Human Rights Day. We're here on this frosty morning outside the United Nations to stand in solidarity with children in Donbass and all over the world who are affected by U.S. wars. For more than 2.5 years, this region has been bombed, invaded, and blockaded by the illegitimate government of Ukraine. Since last spring, youth organizers in the independent Lugansk and Donetsk republics of Donbass, led by the Komsomol, or Communist Youth of Lugansk, have gathered hundreds of letters from children and teenagers testifying to the ways Ukraine's brutal war has affected their lives. These letters are being presented by the youth to United Nations representatives in Europe. The U.S. corporate media often repeats the fiction that Russia invaded Ukraine, but they purposely cover up the fact that the U.S.-Ukraine war on Donbass continues to this very day. In fact, this past week saw the largest number of bombings by the Ukrainian side in over a year, more than 10,000 in just a week, on frontline towns and villages, in violation of the Minsk ceasefire agreement. According to a report of the United Nations' own High Commissioner on Human Rights released on Thursday, nearly 10,000 people have been killed and more than 22,000 wounded as a result of the war in Donbass. As of June of this year, at least 101 children were among the dead, with hundreds more wounded, thousands orphaned, and tens of thousands forced to flee their homes as refugees. As opponents of war in the United States, we have a special responsibility to speak out. The February 2014 coup in Ukraine, which brought to power oligarchs, nationalist demagogues, and outright neo-Nazis, received financing and bipartisan political support from Washington. Through direct aid and financial aid bodies, the U.S. has kept this regime afloat for nearly 3 years. The Pentagon and U.S. police agencies train, advise, and supply Ukrainian armed forces, including fascist gangs like the Azov Battalion.
Stay on him while he's talking.
On behalf of Wall Street and Big Oil, Washington is carrying out a war on children all over the world. In Donbass, Syria, Yemen, Somalia, Gaza, Afghanistan, Pakistan, and not only in other countries, but here at home, through cutbacks to crumbling schools and housing, through racist police brutality, Islamophobia, jailing of immigrant and refugee children and families fleeing U.S. military and economic crimes in Central America. We have no confidence in the president-elect, oligarch Donald Trump, to change things for the better. Trump and his supporters have already declared open war on children and families in the U.S. In fact, Trump first achieved international fame for persecuting children. The Central Park Five, black and brown youth here in New York City who were framed up by the police. Trump called for their execution. And even today, long after these men have been exonerated, he refuses to acknowledge their innocence. Trump also speaks belligerently of building a wall on the border with Mexico, just as Poroshenko and the right-wing government in Ukraine threatened to build a wall against Donbass. He's threatened China and Iran and has stacked his cabinet picks with Pentagon hawks. We must step up the struggle against war, racism, and repression in anticipation of new wars of aggression.
Yeah, right there.
We remember that 8 years ago, Barack Obama, too, campaigned as an anti-war candidate.
Put your glove on.
But war, division, and exploitation are built into the U.S. system of imperialism, no matter who sits in the White House. The only thing that can stop war is the power of the people and international solidarity.
Okay.
We want to urge everyone to join us in building a powerful campaign against war and racism, starting with the mass protests to resist and disrupt the inauguration of oligarch Donald Trump on January 20th, 2017 in Washington. We have flyers here for those who are interested, or you can visit the website j20resist.org. Now what we're going to do today, because this is an important event in terms of breaking the information blockade on what's happening in Donbass, and this video is going to be circulated around the world, including in that part of the world. What we'd like to do is invite everyone to take a quote from the children's letters to read.
When shooting started here, we, mother, sister, and I, left. But when we were crossing the border, we came under the attack. We were led into a building and then let out and told to run. We were running, and behind us, the customs station was under fire. Then someone shouted to us to lay down. A woman covered me. And then it was very scary. A car drove up, and mother, sister, and I, as well as some other girl, were put into the car and drove away from the customs station. These were simple taxi drivers. When we were in the car, the girl was crying a lot and telling us that her mother stayed behind, and that's unnamed. And I just want to say that as a working person, that kind of solidarity of, as she puts it, simple taxi drivers, people have to look out for each other. And I also want to say, as a teacher, that we need money for our schools, recreation centers, and training programs for people who don't necessarily want to go to college, and we need tuition help or free college, so that people can develop to their fullest. And here's all this money going towards abuse, destruction, and death. So we're not for it. Thank you.
Thank you. Who would like to speak next?
Return to our cities, villages, towns. We would like to forget the word war forever. What has been happening here now is taking place in Syria. People are fleeing to Europe as their houses are in ruins. There are no conditions for living whatsoever. People, stop wars. Peaceful population is dying while the authorities are deciding people's lives. Please listen to ordinary people. Look what is happening in the world. It is necessary to stop all wars since it leads to the death of civilization. Let's live in peace and harmony. Vladya, 13 years old. And all I would like to add to Vladya's words is the front line in the Donetsk Republic is only like 10 to 15 kilometers outside the city of Donetsk, a heavily populated area and the capital of Donetsk People's Republic. And there's constant shelling into this city. This has been going on for several years now. People are literally dying virtually every day. Thank you.
Who would like to speak next?
In 2014, my sister and I, among many other children from Krasnodon, Volodogvardisk, Lysychansk, Kramatorsk, Shasti, and other cities, gripped with war, were taken to Crimea. We were leaving without our parents, as other children did, who were over 6 years old. In Crimea, we met many other children who survived terrible bombardments. Their stories are eerie. upon calling them, many would begin crying and trembling. But the most terrifying were stories of children from those towns where the punishers came after the battles. I.A.C, 17 years old, Donetsk. But it's a horrible thing that over 70 years after the end of the biggest war in history, World War II, which tens of millions of people died, and the majority were in the Soviet Union. And once again, rockets and missiles are falling down 70 years later on the cities and towns of Donbass. And the men behind the guns are the political descendants of those in Ukraine who willingly served Adolf Hitler, except this time they're being paid. They're on the payroll of the United States government, which is unbeknownst to which, the Cold War supposedly ended 25 years ago, but unbeknownst to people in this country, most people in this country, the U.S. government and military are waging proxy war around the world, from the Donbass to Syria, Palestine, Yemen. The bombs are falling, they're made in the USA, they're paid for by our tax dollars that come at the expense of our hospitals, our schools, our transit systems. Basically, we have the problem of this country being run by a giant military operation that serves the interests of Wall Street, in particular in this part of the world where it's really the oil companies who were behind the war against Iraq, who were also behind the escalating war, threats of war against Russia. The only people who can stop it are the people, meaning money for jobs and housing and schools, not for war.
Hi. Greetings, people of the whole world. An ordinary girl is writing to you, a pupil of the 2nd grade. I want to address you with a request. Let's take care of the world around us. Let's not contaminate woods, seas, rivers. Let's be friendly. Let's not fight, kill each other. We, children for peace in the whole world and for happy life. Polina, 2nd grade. That's an amazing thing for somebody in the 2nd grade, to be able to write to the people of the world. When the people of the world are destroying her life and the lives of children all over. I'm a teacher, I'm a grandparent, I'm a person who cares about everyone's lives in the whole world. It is despicable that imperialists and their running dogs are able to brutalize the lives of people all over the world, especially children. We must get together and destroy the way that they are able to do this. We must stick together, we must band together and overthrow imperialism. Now. Woo!
I address every Ukrainian soldier with the question, why do you kill women, children, old people? We are just like you. And you shoot your brothers and sisters. I can only say one thing. Yes, we are different, but we all have the same dream, and it is peace over our heads. Every one of us wants to live. This is what she says. Why are we killing each other? This is why we never get answers. Children go to school, they fight each other, and everywhere you go, the kids being killed by step-parents, and it just needs to stop.
I live in the Lugansk region, town Ivarino. I want to tell you what has happened in my native land. This all began when I was in the 4th grade. The war came to us. This was scary. All young and elderly men went to checkpoints. Among them was my father, to defend our land. Here there were helicopters flying around. Lugansk was bombed. Innocent people were killed. I had to leave my motherland. When I returned for the first time after our town was liberated, it was frightening there. People have still not returned. Some houses were ruined. Every day explosions were heard and shootings. But afterwards, I got used to it, while some kids continued to sit in basements. I felt so sorry for them. I do not understand people who kill each other. We did not want this war. 2 years have passed. The war has still not ended. But we all dream about peace. For it to be quiet here. For children to study calmly. For all people to return home. My name is Reverend Mother Marcy, and I just want to say a few words about how important it is for us to recognize that the whole militaristic consciousness, the whole consciousness of power over others, is one that ultimately comes from a place of
No more power?
weakness. That's why they need violence and strength and force to exert their will. But that true power comes from strength.
Go stand with your mother.
From sharing power with, rather. The strength comes from power with others, cooperation. Darwin never argued that his work meant survival of the fittest. That's what the rich folk who controlled the press concluded. Darwin actually was fascinated with the fact that cooperation is necessary for all of our survival, and clearly 6-year-old children understand that, so why can't our leaders? The problem here is that you cannot create peace with a violent consciousness. But we can create peace by masses of us having a peaceful consciousness. I'm old enough to have lived through the Vietnam War, and I know that that war didn't end until millions of us all over this country got out in the street. Well, guess what? We activists can start to feel pumped. We shut down the TPP. We've rerouted the Dakota Access Pipeline, and we all need to take a lesson from those gallant Lakota Sioux warriors out there in Standing Rock. When they closed the camps, they gave their leftover supplies to the police. The same police who would send attack dogs on them and shot them with rubber bullets and set fire to their camps. They showed compassion because they know these people are weak. They still filed a class action lawsuit against the police for brutality, and if that wins big, it will chill police brutality everywhere. So we are winning. Let us all take heart. We can keep speaking out, but let us not focus so much on all the evil. Let us focus on the love in our hearts and send love in our hearts to all these amazing people who are writing to us through these letters today. Thank you.
There should not be wars on our earth. Everything should be resolved through dialogue with words, with diplomats. Children should live in peace and calm, and it depends on only from adults what kind of world will it be by Victoria. So I think what this means, the letter by Victoria, is that we should only solve this. We should not be like animals, solve it with war. We should talk it out, and that's how to save humans from getting killed. Like everything that we watch on the news is just because of war and what happened from the past.
Thank you. Michael, would you like to
This letter was written by Andre, a 6th grade student in Donbass. There was a road of death. It was called so because cars that drove on it were constantly fired at by Ukrainian military. But in fact it was the road of life, since peaceful residents tried to leave a no longer safe region, but all could not leave. Afterwards, we were affected by economic blockade. Banks, ATMs did not work. It was emptying stores. There was no delivery of goods, but we survived. Then it was the most frightening for Krasnodon, Suhodolsk, and Molodogvardesk. It is when people die and suffer, children, peaceful residents. In those days, a grandmother and a mother did not return to many homes. Someone's uncle and father was killed. It is when planes fly with wild war and fire at them. It is when houses, schools are destroyed. Why do they have to stand now with pierced-through roofs, riddled walls, broken windows, or plywood instead of glass? This is Andre, a 6th grade student in Donbass. My name is Michael Kramer. I'm the president of Veterans for Peace, Chapter 21 in northern New Jersey. And we're here today in solidarity with the people of Ukraine who are confronting fascism every day, and the people of the Donbass. We want to give a special salute to the anti-fascist freedom fighters in Ukraine and Russia, whether they confronted fascism during the Great Patriotic War of 1941 to 1945, or are confronting fascism today. We know that today's wars are fueled by racism and the drive for profits, and we will do our best to struggle to end these wars.
War is the hardest trial for an entire population, but the most defenseless and vulnerable in this time are children. We have seen the stern face of the war, its cold, pitiless eyes. Our childhood passes by irretrievably and is replaced by pain, suffering, losses of relatives and close ones, privations. Children who lived through a war will never forget it. If we only could prevent everything bad that could happen, we would do it. We, ordinary people, whose voice at the moment, alas, does not mean anything. Anastasia, 9th grade. Anastasia, we got your back.
Stop the war against children from Lugansk to New York.
Stop the war against children from Lugansk to New York. Stop the war against children from Lugansk to New York. Stop the war against children from Lugansk to New York. Stop the war against children from Lugansk to New York. Stop the war against children from Lugansk to New York. Stop the war against children from Lugansk to New York.
Stop the war against children from Lugansk to New York.
Thanks everyone for coming out. I know it was early and a cold morning, but it's really important to our friends in Lugansk and Donetsk. It's important for us as anti-war activists, anti-fascists, anti-racists here to be together and talk about these issues and connect the issues of our struggles to protect our children and our youth here and what's going on, what our government is doing overseas, especially as we're getting ready to confront this new frightening Trump administration. I just wanted to say today is International Human Rights Day. There are other activities going on. In Harlem, there's a rally for political prisoners. Picture the Homeless is holding a rally in the evening for the 2 children who died last week because of a radiator explosion in an apartment that was set aside for homeless families. And the mayor is going to be speaking at a school in Harlem, 102nd Street, I believe it is, and talking about what a great job he's doing with the housing situation. So we're going to go out there and confront, what the real situation in the city is for homeless families.
From Lugansk to New York. Stop the war against children from Lugansk to New York. Stop the war against children from Lugansk to New York. Stop the war against children from Lugansk to New York. Stop the war against children from Lugansk to New York.